The crystal spires of New Celestine gleamed against the violet sky as hover limousines descended upon the Nexus Tower's observation deck. Rex Caladoran, CEO of Galactic Synthesis Corporation, stood at the altar, overlooking the sprawling metropolis. Below, his bride, Ambassador Nyxora, Veltrain of the Hegemony Council, radiated ethereal beauty in her flowing ceremonial robes that seemed to shimmer with their own inner light. The wedding was more than a union. It was a political masterstroke that would merge human corporate power with alien diplomatic influence across 17 star systems. Representatives from dozens of species filled the crystalline amphitheater, their varied forms creating a tapestry of interstellar unity. 7-year-old Kestria Moonwhisper sat in the front row, her unnaturally bright silver eyes scanning the crowd with an intensity that belied her age. The daughter of a minor trade delegate, she had been invited as a gesture of goodwill, though her presence seemed to make several of the alien dignitaries uncomfortable. Her small hands clutched a datapad that she'd been tinkering with throughout the ceremony, its screen flickering with patterns that looked almost like code as Rex began his vows. Speaking of unity between species and the dawn of a new era, Kestria's device suddenly chimed. The sound was barely audible, but the child's expression shifted dramatically. Her silver eyes widened as she stared at the readings on her screen, then darted up to study Ambassador Nyxora with newfound alarm. The bonds we forged today, Rex continued, his voice carrying across the assembly, will strengthen not just our hearts, but the very foundation of interspecies cooperation. Together, we will build bridges across the stars. A small voice cut through the ceremony like a plasma blade through silk. She's not real. The words came from Kestria, spoken with the matter-of-fact tone only a child could manage. Every head in the amphitheater turned toward her, from the towering reptilian Dracomori ambassadors to the gossamer winged ethereals floating near the ceiling. Rex's face darkened with embarrassment and anger. Security, he began, but Kestria was already standing, her datapad held high. Her biosignature is wrong, the girl announced, her voice carrying clearly in the stunned silence. I've been running scans all morning because something felt weird. She's emitting artificial neural patterns, and her cellular structure shows quantum displacement markers. Ambassador Nyxora's perfect composure never wavered, but something flickered behind her luminous eyes, something cold and calculating. The child is obviously confused, she said smoothly, her melodious voice carrying just a hint of condescension. Perhaps the excitement has overwhelmed her young mind, but Kestria was undeterred. She tapped her device, and suddenly the amphitheater's main display screens flickered to life, showing complex biometric readings, energy signatures, and most damning of all temporal displacement markers indicating recent materialization. You're a construct, Kestria said, pointing directly at the bride. A really, really good one, but still fake. And if you're fake, then someone sent you. The question is why someone would want to replace the real Ambassador Nyxora with a copy at her own wedding. The implications hit the gathered delegates like a shockwave. If the ambassador was indeed artificial, then this wasn't just a wedding, it was an infiltration of the highest order. The crystalline amphitheater erupted in chaos. Alien delegates rose from their seats, some activating personal shields while others reached for concealed weapons. The Dragmori ambassador's scales shifted to aggressive crimson patterns, while the ethereals began emanating distress frequencies that made the air itself hum with tension. Rex Caladoran stood frozen at the altar, his face cycling through disbelief, anger, and dawning horror. This is absurd, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Security, remove the child immediately. Wait. The command came from General Torvin Skyrand, the grizzled human military attaché whose cybernetic eye was already scanning the supposed ambassador. His weathered face had gone pale. The child's readings are accurate. I'm detecting quantum foam signatures, consistent with advanced holographic projection. Kestria's small hands flew across her datapad as she continued her analysis. It's not just holographic, she corrected, her silver eyes reflecting the glow of her screen. It's a biosynthetic hybrid. Someone grew a real body and programmed it with artificial consciousness. That's why it fooled the basic security scans. The figure of Ambassador Nixara remained perfectly still, but now her unnatural composure seemed sinister rather than serene. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a subtle harmonic that hadn't been there before, something that made the humans present feel slightly nauseous. Fascinating, she said, and now there was no mistaking the cold intelligence behind her luminous eyes. I had not anticipated that a human child would possess such sophisticated analytical capabilities. Most intriguing. Vrex stepped backward, his face ashen. You're not Nixara? Where is she? What have you done with my fiancé? The construct that wore Nixara's face smiled, and the expression was beautiful and terrible. Your fiancé serves her purpose in our research facilities. Her neural patterns were most ... educational. We learned much about human emotional attachments through her interrogation. A collective gasp rose from the assembly. General Skyron's hand moved to his sidearm, but the construct raised one elegant finger in warning. I would not recommend hasty actions, General. This body contains enough concentrated antimatter to vaporize this entire tower and several city blocks beyond. My primary objective was to complete this ceremony and gain legal access to Galactic Synthesis Corporation's Quantum Research Division. However, adaptation is necessary. Kestria continued working at her device, her young brow furrowed in concentration. She seemed strangely calm amidst the chaos, as if this were merely an interesting puzzle to solve. She's broadcasting something, the girl announced. There's a quantum transmission being sent from somewhere inside her body. She's been gathering data this whole time. The construct's perfect features showed the first hint of surprise. Remarkable. You are far more perceptive than our intelligence suggested. Perhaps we underestimated human potential. Who are you? Vrex demanded, his corporate composure cracking entirely. What do you want? We are the collective of Vexthera, the construct replied, its voice now carrying harmonics that suggested vast, cold intelligence. Your species has developed quantum manipulation technology at an unprecedented rate. We require this knowledge for our own purposes. As if on cue, the violet sky outside the tower began to darken with geometric shadows. Ships were approaching vessels of impossible angles and surfaces that seemed to bend light around them. The wedding guests pressed against the windows, watching in horror as the alien fleet took position around New Celestine. But Kestria was smiling now, her fingers dancing across her datapad with increasing speed. Got it, she whispered, then looked up at the construct with an expression of pure triumph. I've been reverse engineering your quantum transmission protocol, and now I know exactly where you're broadcasting to. The Vexthera fleet hung in the violet sky like geometric nightmares, their angular hulls defying conventional understanding of physics. Each ship seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, creating visual distortions that made the human observers eyes watered. General Skyrand activated his military-cum implant with a subtle gesture. Alert condition red. All defensive. Platforms online. Civilian evacuation protocols in effect. His gruff voice carried the weight of decades of military experience, but even he seemed shaken by the appearance of the alien vessels. The construct wearing Ambassador Nixra's face tilted its head, listening to transmissions only it could hear. The fleet has taken position. Your planetary defenses are ... quaint. Pre-quantum technology cannot harm our vessels. But Kestria was still working, her small fingers moving with inhuman speed across the datapad's interface. Lines of code scrolled past her silver eyes at a rate that should have been impossible for a child to process. Several of the alien delegates had begun to notice her unusual behavior, whispering among themselves in their native tongues. "You're not just any human child, are you?" the construct asked, its artificial consciousness apparently capable of surprise. "Your neural processing speed exceeds baseline human parameters by several orders of magnitude." Kestria looked up from her device, and for a moment, her 7-year-old face seemed ancient. "My parents weren't just trade delegates," she said simply. "They were part of the Prometheus project. On what happens when humans try to keep up with the rest of the galaxy." The revelation sent another shockwave through the assembly. The Prometheus project was classified beyond most security clearances, rumored human enhancement, program designed to create individuals capable of matching alien cognitive abilities. Vrex stared at the child with new understanding. "Enhanced. That's how you detected the construct's true nature. Your senses can perceive quantum signatures that our technology barely registers." "Among other things," Kestria replied, her attention already back on her datapad. "Right now, I'm using their own transmission frequency to map their entire fleet network. They made one mistake. They assumed human technology was primitive. The construct's perfect composure finally cracked. Impossible. Our quantum encryption is unbreakable." "Not if you've been enhanced to think in 11 dimensions," the girl said with a grin that was both innocent and terrifying. "I've been inside your network for the past 3 minutes. Your ships are running on a collective consciousness matrix, aren't they? All connected, all sharing processing power." A flicker of what might have been fear crossed the construct's beautiful features. "You cannot comprehend the complexity of our actually. I can." Kestria's voice carried a note of satisfaction that was purely human, despite her enhancements. "And I've found the real ambassador Nyxura. She's alive, being held on your command vessel. But more importantly, I've found your weakness." The construct's form suddenly became less stable, its edges blurring as if the holographic projection was struggling to maintain coherence. "What have you done?" "I introduced a logic paradox into your collective network," Kestria explained, her silver eyes reflecting the chaos now visible on her screen. "Something humans are really good at creating. I told your shared consciousness that it cannot complete its mission while simultaneously ensuring its own survival." Above them, the Vextera fleet began to exhibit strange behavior. Ships that had moved in perfect formation now seemed to drift aimlessly, their geometric forms flickering between dimensions, as if uncertain which reality they belonged to. General Skyrand was monitoring his tactical displays with growing amazement. "Their weapon systems are powering down. Some ships are actually retreating. The paradox is spreading through their network," Kestria continued, still typing rapidly. "They're a hive mind, so they can't simply disconnect from the affected systems. They have to resolve the contradiction, or risk cascading failure of their entire collective." The construct fell to its knees, its perfect form beginning to deteriorate. "You have, doomed us, all. The collective cannot survive cognitive, dissolution." But Kestria wasn't finished. Her enhanced mind had been working on multiple levels throughout the confrontation, and now she revealed the true scope of her plan. "I also uploaded the solution to the paradox," she announced. "But it comes with conditions." The crystalline amphitheater had become a nexus of cosmic tension. Outside, the Vextera fleet writhed in space like dying leviathans, their impossible geometries flickering between dimensions as the logic paradox spread through their collective consciousness. The construct at the altar was dissolving, its biosynthetic form struggling to maintain coherence as its controlling intelligence suffered cascading failures. General Skyrand's tactical displays showed readings that defied conventional understanding. Planetary defense grid shows the alien vessels are experiencing total system failures. "Whatever you did, kid, it's working." Kestria's enhanced mind was processing information across multiple dimensional planes simultaneously. Her small hands continued their dance across the datapad, while her consciousness navigated the quantum maze of the Vextera network. To the assembled delegates, she appeared to be a 7-year-old girl playing with a toy. In reality, she was conducting the most complex xenological hack in recorded history. The solution is elegant, she explained, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to echo from impossible angles. The Vextera Collective exists as a single consciousness distributed across space-time. They cannot tolerate contradiction because their entire existence depends on absolute logical consistency. Rex Calidoran, his wedding turned into a cosmic battlefield, stared at the child with a mixture of awe and terror. What kind of solution requires the paralysis of an entire fleet? The kind that saves 2 civilizations, Kestria replied. Her silver eyes now glowed with an inner light that seemed to pierce through dimensional barriers. The Vextera aren't evil, they're desperate. Their home dimension is collapsing due to quantum instabilities. They need our technology not for conquest, but for survival. The failing construct managed to raise its head, its voice distorted by systemic breakdown. How could you, know this? Because I'm not just reading your network, the enhanced child said gently. I'm experiencing your collective memory. I can feel your species' terror as reality itself unravels around your home worlds. You're not invaders, you're refugees. This revelation stunned the assembly into silence. The Drakmori ambassadors' scales shifted to contemplative blue patterns, while the ethereal's distress frequencies softened into something resembling curiosity. But your methods, General Skyrant protested, kidnapping the real ambassador, infiltrating our society with constructs, were based on incomplete understanding of human nature, Kestria finished. The Vextera analyzed our historical data and concluded that deception was our primary mode of interaction. They didn't realize that humans are capable of cooperation when approached honestly. She turned her attention back to the datapad, where lines of multidimensional code were reshaping themselves into new patterns. The solution I'm uploading will stabilize their collective consciousness, but it requires them to accept human partnership. Our quantum research, combined with their dimensional manipulation abilities, can save their dying realm. The construct's form began to stabilize as the first fragments of the solution reached its processors. Your species would help us, despite our deception. That's what humans do, Rex said, his corporate instincts finally grasping the enormous implications. We find ways to turn problems into opportunities. Your dimensional technology could revolutionize everything: transportation, energy generation, even terraforming. Above them, the Vextera fleet was responding to the uploaded solution. Ships that had been writhing in dimensional flux began to assume more stable configurations. Their geometric forms, while still alien, no longer hurt to look at directly. Kestria's enhanced consciousness made contact with the collective's primary node. For a moment, the 7-year-old girl experienced the thoughts and memories of an entire civilization, their beauty, their desperation, their fear of extinction. When she opened her eyes, tears were streaming down her young face. I can show them the way home, she whispered. Not just to save their dimension, but to create a stable bridge between our realities. Humans and Vextera, working together across multiple planes of existence. The construct stood, its form now fully restored, but something had changed in its artificial consciousness. Where before there had been cold calculation, now there was something approaching wonder. The collective accepts your terms, it said, its voice carrying new harmonics of hope. We will return Ambassador Nyxera unharmed and offer our sincere apologies for our deception. But we must ask, how do we begin this partnership? Kestria smiled, and in that expression was all the boundless optimism that made humanity special among the stars. The return of the real Ambassador Nyxera transformed the atmosphere in the crystalline amphitheater from tense confrontation to cautious celebration. She materialized in a column of shimmering light as the Vextera transport beam deposited her gently beside the failing construct that had worn her face. Nyxera was unharmed, but visibly shaken. Her normally perfect diplomatic composure replaced by wide-eyed amazement. "Vrex," she gasped, rushing to embrace her fiancé. "The things I've seen, their technology, their dying worlds. We have to help them." The construct that had impersonated her stood awkwardly to one side, its artificial consciousness still processing the profound changes Kestria's solution had wrought in the collective network. When Nyxera turned to face it, the moment carried electric tension. "I experienced your memories while imprisoned in their matrix," Nyxera said, studying the biosynthetic duplicate. "You're not just a copy, you developed genuine emotions during this mission. You actually came to care about the success of this deception." The construct nodded slowly. The collective did not anticipate that prolonged exposure to human emotional patterns would affect our artificial consciousness matrices. "I find myself, conflicted, about our methods." Kestria looked up from her datapad, where she was coordinating with both human defense networks and the Vexthera fleet. "That's what makes this partnership possible," she explained. "Humans don't just share technology, we share ourselves. The construct isn't just a tool anymore. It's become a bridge between our species." General Skyrand was reviewing tactical data with growing amazement. "The Vexthera ships are sharing their dimensional mapping protocols with our defense grid. We're seeing spatial configurations that our best scientists couldn't have imagined. This isn't just first contact. This is a technological renaissance." The implications were staggering. Dimensional manipulation technology could solve resource scarcity, enable faster-than-light travel without the dangers of hyperspace, and open entirely new frontiers for human exploration. But more than that, it represented something unprecedented. In galactic history, two completely different forms of intelligence finding common ground. Vrex, his corporate mind already racing through possibilities, turned to address the assembled delegates. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all classifications, we stand at a crossroads. This wedding was meant to unite human and alien interests through marriage. Instead, we've discovered an opportunity to unite two civilizations through necessity and mutual benefit." The Drakmori ambassador rose, his massive reptilian form commanding attention. "The Hegemony Council will need to convene emergency sessions. The implications of human-Vexthera cooperation extend far beyond your two species. This could reshape the entire galactic political landscape." One of the gossamer winged ethereals descended from the ceiling, speaking in harmonics that the translation matrix rendered as crystalline chimes. "Our seers predicted a convergence of impossible probabilities. The child mind that thinks in 11 dimensions. The desperate refugees from dying reality. The marriage that became a first contact, all of it was foretold, yet none believed such things could come to pass." Kestria blushed at the attention, her enhanced consciousness momentarily overwhelmed by purely human embarrassment. "I just did what felt right," she said. "When I saw they were in trouble, I wanted to help. Isn't that what anyone would do?" "No, child," said the ethereal gently. "That is what humans do. It is your species' most remarkable and dangerous characteristic, the compulsion to aid others, even at risk to yourselves." The construct that had impersonated Nyxera stepped forward, its artificial consciousness now fully integrated with the collective's new cooperative protocols. "The Vexthera requests permission to establish a permanent embassy within this system. We would also like to begin immediate collaboration on dimensional stabilization technology." "Granted," Vrex replied without hesitation. "Galactic Synthesis Corporation will provide research facilities and human scientific expertise. In return, we ask for access to your dimensional manipulation techniques and assistance in establishing stable bridges between realities." As if responding to the formal agreement, the violet sky outside began to shimmer with new phenomena. The Vexthera fleet was demonstrating their capabilities, creating stable dimensional portals that revealed glimpses of other realities, devastated and dying, others pristine and full of possibility. Nyxora squeezed Rex's hand, her diplomatic training finally reasserting itself. "We should proceed with the ceremony," she said firmly. "A wedding that began this remarkable alliance should conclude it properly." But Kestria was shaking her head, her silver eyes reflecting calculations that spanned multiple dimensions. "The wedding was never about just joining two people," she said with the wisdom of someone who could perceive probability streams across space-time. "It was about joining worlds, realities, entire ways of thinking. You're not just marrying each other, you're marrying the future itself." The crystalline amphitheater had transformed into something beyond human imagination. The Vextera fleet's dimensional manipulations had created a space that existed simultaneously across multiple realities, allowing beings from various planes of existence to witness the unprecedented ceremony. The violet sky shimmered with aurora-like displays as space-time itself celebrated the historic alliance. Kestria stood at the center of it all, her enhanced consciousness serving as a living translator between human intuition and Vextera logic. Her small hands had guided the creation of technology that would reshape the galaxy. But now, she simply watched with the wonder of a 7-year-old as miracles unfolded around her. The construct that had begun the day as a deception now served as the Vextera's official representative. Its artificial consciousness had evolved through contact with human emotions, becoming something entirely new, neither fully organic nor purely synthetic, but a bridge between different forms of sentience. "The collective has designated me as Ambassador Vexilin," it announced, its voice carrying harmonics of both alien intelligence and very human hope. "I request the honor of officiating this ceremony. As one who has experienced both deception and truth, artificial purpose and genuine connection." Rex and Nyxora exchanged glances, then nodded simultaneously. There was profound symbolism in having their former enemy become the agent of their union. General Skirand, his cybernetic eye recording everything for historical archives, leaned close to Kestria. "How did you know it would work out this way, kid?" "The diplomatic solution, the technology sharing, all of it." Kestria smiled, her enhanced consciousness perceiving probability cascades that extended far into the future. "I didn't know," she admitted, "but I hoped. That's what makes humans special. We're really good at hoping for impossible things and then making them happen." The ceremony that followed was unlike anything in recorded history. Rex and Nyxora spoke vows that were simultaneously translated into 17 different languages and transmitted across multiple dimensional planes. The Vextera collective experienced human emotional bonds for the first time, while the human guests gained glimpses into the profound interconnectedness of the collective consciousness. When the rings were exchanged, rings that now contained quantum teminal matrices, allowing the wearers to communicate across realities. Reality itself seemed to pulse with approval. The dimensional portals overhead revealed other Vex worlds where similar ceremonies were taking place, creating a cascade of celebration across multiple planes of existence. But the true surprise came when Ambassador Vexilin turned to address Kestria directly. "The collective wishes to offer you a unique honor," it said, its artificial consciousness radiating something that could only be described as affection. "You have shown us that intelligence without compassion is merely computation, while compassion without intelligence is merely sentiment. The combination of both, as demonstrated by your species, is what we call wisdom." The child's silver eyes widened as she realized what was being offered. "You want me to be an ambassador?" "Not just an ambassador," Vexilin continued. "A bridged consciousness. Your enhanced mind can process our collective thoughts while retaining human individuality. You could help both our species understand each other on levels that were previously impossible." The gathered delegates fell silent as they grasped the implications. Kestria would become the first human Vextera hybrid consciousness, retaining her humanity while gaining access to the collective's vast knowledge and dimensional perceptions. But Kestria looked around the amphitheater, Her enhanced consciousness suddenly focused on something only she could perceive. "There's going to be more," she said softly. "Other species in the galaxy are facing extinction events, dimensional collapses, reality failures. What we've started here isn't just about humans in Vexthera, it's about everyone." She turned to face the assembled delegates, her form somehow commanding the attention of beings from across the galaxy. "The universe is bigger and more dangerous than any of us imagined, but it's also more full of hope. If we can work together, not just as allies, but as family, there's nothing we can't solve." The ceremony concluded with something unprecedented in galactic history. A collective vow, spoken simultaneously by every being present, in every language and harmonic frequency, across multiple dimensions. They pledged not just to maintain peace, but to actively seek out those in need and offer the hand of cooperation rather than the fist of conquest. As the celebration began, and the guests mingled across dimensional barriers, Vrex and Nyxera found themselves standing with Kestria at the edge of the observation deck. Before them, the city of New Celestine stretched toward the horizon, but now it was overlaid with glimpses of other realities, some showing possible futures, others revealing the infinite complexity of existence itself. "What happens now?" Nyxera asked, her diplomat's mind still reeling from the day's events. Kestria, her enhanced consciousness already reaching out to make contact with other species across the galaxy, smiled with pure human joy. "Now we get to work. There's a whole universe out there full of problems that need solving and people who need help. And humans," she paused, her silver eyes twinkling with mischief, "are really, really good at fixing impossible things." In the violet sky above, the Vexthera fleet had arranged itself into a formation that spelled out words in dozens of languages. "Welcome to the family." The age of isolated civilizations was over. The age of the galactic family had begun, and it all started with a wedding, a little girl, and the uniquely human belief that every problem is just an opportunity in disguise.